In tonight's stories, 3 terrors take shape. A little girl's coloring book hides drawings no child should ever imagine. A breached facility becomes a slaughterhouse of voices and flesh. And a boy's closet opens to reveal a woman who steals children and leaves something else behind. 3 tales of innocence lost, nightmares unleashed, and horrors you cannot shut the door on. Welcome to Nightmare Proof, where true horror comes alive. Here, you'll hear real stories of the strange, the disturbing, and the unexplainable. Turn down the lights, get comfortable, and prepare to face the darkness. 1. Lily's coloring book. My wife and I had our first child 10 years ago. She's a beautiful little girl, so smart, so well-mannered, and with each passing day we grow more and more proud of her. It was very evident from an early age that Lily was drawn to art, pun not intended. For her 3rd Christmas, we decided that we'd get her one of those little white boards, as well as some dry erase markers. Remarkably, never once did she get any of those markers on her skin. Every color went directly to her board. The way that those colorful markers held my young daughter's attention was truly awe-inspiring and duly noted by my wife and I. Our baby girl would sit for hours on end, scribbling and erasing, drooling down onto the whiteboard without so much as a whimper. To be honest, I think we saw more fusses out of her from when we had to peel her away from the thing. Whether it be for bed or bath time, she'd throw these tantrums kicking and screaming wildly. And they'd go on until she either fell asleep or went back to the board. Time passes though, as we all know. And with that passing of time came my daughter's growing disinterest in both the markers and the board. Obviously, my wife and I didn't want our little girl to lose touch with this seemingly predestined love for art, so together we came up with another idea: a coloring book. I mean, think about it. Lily had already shown such love for putting color to a background. Now that she was a little older, coloring books would be the answer, right? So, for her 4th Christmas, we went all out. Crayons, water paint, gel pens, even some oil pastels. The crowning jewel, however, was the thick 110-page coloring book that we wrapped in bright red wrapping paper and placed right in front of her other gifts. You know those coloring books you see at Walmart or Target? Those ones with the super detailed, almost labyrinth-like designs? Well, if you do, then you know what we got her. Obviously, she went out of those intricate little lines more than a couple of times, but for her age, I was astonished at how well she had done on her first page. It was like she knew her limitations as a toddler, yet her brain operated like that of someone much, much older. Her mistakes looked like they tormented her. She'd get so flustered, sometimes slamming her crayon or pen down atop the book as her eyes filled with frustrated tears. My wife and I would comfort her in these instances, letting her know just how talented she truly was and how proud we were. We could tell that our words fell on deaf ears, though, and our daughter seemed to just zone us out anytime we caught her in the midst of one of these episodes. All she cared about was being better. Nothing we said could change that. And get better she did. A few months after Christmas, I happened to walk into the kitchen to find Lily at the dining room table, carefully stroking a page from her book with a crayon, gripped firmly in her hand. Intrigued by her investment in what she was doing, I stepped up behind her and peered over her shoulder. She had not broken a single line. I actually let out a slight gasp in utter shock, which prompted her to turn around and flash a big snaggletooth smile at me. "Daddy, look," she shouted proudly, flipping the book around in front of my face. "I see that, Lilybug! My goodness! Where'd you get that talent from? Definitely wasn't your old man." She laughed before placing the book back on the table. "Look, I did these too," she giggled. She then began flipping through the pages. Every single page. Every page had been colored. I could see her progress. I could see as it went from the clear work of a toddler to indecipherable from that of an adult. I could feel the warm pride for my daughter rising up in my chest and turning to a stinging sensation in my eyes. "You are incredible, Lily. This is amazing, baby girl. I can't tell you how proud I am of you." My daughter beamed, and the moment we shared still lives within my heart as though it just happened yesterday. The Christmas coloring books became a tradition, and every year we'd stock her up on all sorts of the things. Kaleidoscope patterns, scenes from movies, real-life monuments, Lily colored to her little heart's desire. So, what you're probably wondering is, why am I writing this? Well, I'll tell you why. I remember the books we got her. I remember because I reveled in picking them out, choosing the ones that I knew she'd be most interested in. Therefore, imagine my surprise when I was cleaning Lily's room one day while she was at school, to find a book that I know for a fact we did not give her. It had that same cardstock cover as the others, the kind that glistens in the light. Yet, there was no picture on the front, no colorful preview at what the book entailed. Instead, ingrained on the cover was the title, Lily's Coloring Book, in bold lettering. I made the regrettable decision to open the thing and immediately felt the air leave my lungs. Inside were dozens of hand-drawn pictures of me and my wife. Not just any pictures, mind you. Lily had taken the time to sketch us to perfection while we slept. The most intricate, detailed sketches I'd ever seen. The kind that would take a professional artist days to complete, and this book was filled with them. As I flipped, the pictures devolved into nightmare fuel, and I was soon seeing my daughter's drawings of my wife and I sprawled across the floor beneath the Christmas tree, surrounded by ripped coloring book pages and crayons. Our limbs had been torn off and were replaced with colored pencils, protruding from the mangled stumps that had been left behind. Lily had colored our blood with such intimate precision that it felt as though it would leak onto my hand if I touched the page. I stood there, horrified and in a daze. I couldn't stop flipping through the pages, ferociously, each one worse than the last. As I flipped through page after page of gore from my daughter's brain, I could feel that stinging feeling in my eyes that I told you about. The tears welled up and filled my eyelids. In the midst of my breakdown, one thing brought me back to reality. The sound of my daughter calling out from behind me. "Daddy?" she called out, just before my first teardrop hit the floor. 2. R and C facility. Breached, divided by alert rig facility. The short phrase flickered on the security monitor. I tried to mess around with the computer, trying to find something useful. But the screen was frozen, and no matter how many buttons I pressed would change it. I sighed in frustration, turning to the dead guard on the ground. His body lay flat on the floor, pale face frozen in shock and horror. "So, you wouldn't happen to know how to contact the living facility on the other side of the island, huh?" I muttered the words out. To my complete and utter surprise, the man didn't respond. Probably should have tried asking him that before. I rushed in here and emptied 7 rounds into his chest. I sighed, grabbing my hair and clutching the gun in my right hand. I could just end it all. A quick, painless death. Certainly better than what was out there. As I was contemplating my own suicide, the radio on the desk blared to life, requesting aid from any available squads in or near F4 West Wing. My unit is KIA, and I am hiding in the mess hall freezer. Please, I really would appreciate some assistance. A man's voice whispered softly. A moment of silence followed. That's a negative. The West Wing of F4 is considered a lost cause. If you can try to make your way to the central elevator system, we have a squad waiting for you. A man responded. I can't. I'm injured and unable to make the trip. Things are not looking good for me, he continued. We cannot send a squad your way. Everyone's leaving already, the other man responded. Fine then. Blowing my brains out. I'm not joining my squad out there, the man muttered. The radio went silent. The man on the other end didn't even bother responding. A faint gunshot echoed distantly. F4 West Wing. Considered a lost cause? I quickly stood up to get a look at the little map on the side of the wall. F4 map North Wing. No. East Wing? No. South Wing? Well, I'm not dead yet. So no. West Wing. You are here! F4 West Wing. Security Room 2. Great. 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 I chuckled to myself, as I began to pace around the small room. "Hey dude, you've been silent for a while? Any great ideas?" I knelt down to the corpse. Mon, you had to have had a plan. Locking yourself in a security room as soon as shit hit the fan, hoping this would all blow over. Surely that wasn't your whole plan? Who would think that was a great idea? I got up and held the gun to my head. I might as well. End it here. Just like that other guy. I'm not getting to the living facility. Hell, I'm not making it out of West Wing. Why? Bother! I stopped mid, crash out, body frozen looking at the barricaded door. I didn't dare make another sound. But it was already too late. Down the hallway, the sound of screaming emerged. At first, one voice, then two, then three, then four. Fuck, it was the whole science team. Their voices, they shouted. Gibberish! Just randomly shouting words? I recognized a few. That lab assistant. The janitor. The other security guard I stole this gun from while me and the others wrestled him for it before I left them for dead. They were all together. I could hear their bodies, their hands and feet slamming on the walls and floor. Oh God, just one body was so moldable. What could it do with all of theirs? With mine? Tears started to fall down my cheeks. I lifted the gun to my temple. I wasn't going to find out. I took a deep breath. Their screams and shouting no more than a few feet from the door. It was only a matter of time before... Holy shit! Contact! Open fire! A man shouted. Immediately, gunfire erupted from the right side of the hallway. My former colleagues turned their attention to the poor squad trying to leave. It's not stopping! A man shouted. Conventional fire, no longer effective. Retreat to rendezvous point. Prepare incendiary. Another shouted. The gunfire died down and grew distant. So did the screams of my former colleagues. They led it away. All that gunfire and shouting surely led the others too. Rendezvous point. They're all gathering there. One final stand. Mess hall freezer. The guy who blew his brains out, surely his uniform is still intact. I could try to slip by and leave. Surely they'll be too distracted to notice one guy booking it. Best case scenario, I get shot. I gathered up the courage and began to take down the objects blocking the door, and opened it. The hallway was dark. The dim, red emergency lights, illuminating the almost comically gory scene before me. The whole hallway to my left was covered in bloody body prints. The floor, walls, and ceiling. To the right, still very bloody. The floor was covered in bullet casings, but mostly empty. I'll make it out of West Wing. I'll get to the living facility on the other side of the island. Then we'll screw it, I whispered, marching. Out, gun in hand. We could figure out how to get off this island afterwards. 3. My son thinks there's a woman in his closet. Mom, Dad, she's back! She's back! My 8-year-old son burst into our room screaming, the door banging against the wall as he dove into the darkness where my wife and I were trying to sleep. Richard, I groaned, voice thick with exhaustion, my eyes still half-lidded. I've told you 1,000 times she's not real. He scrambled straight onto the bed and into Sarah's arms. She gathered him close without hesitation, soothing him with soft words and a hand stroking his back. It's all right, honey. You're safe, she whispered, kissing the top of his head. Then her eyes flicked to me, sharp and urgent. Mike, can you check Richard's closet? Just to be sure? I rubbed my face, trying to shake the weight of sleep. Babe, it's not going to. Her stare cut through me, colder than the night air. No words, just a demand. I sighed, swung my legs out of bed, and shuffled toward my son's room. We'd done this song and dance at least 15 times now, and it was starting to grate on me. About 2 months ago, Richard had first told us about the woman who came out of his closet at night to whisper to him. At first, we were obviously horrified. When I heard his screams that first night, I'd run like a bat out of hell down the hall, flicked the light switch on, and found him trembling, finger extended at the closet door. I'd ripped it open without a second thought, heart hammering, scanning every corner for any sign of a threat. But of course, there was nothing there. Just a neat row of clothes, boxes, and a few scattered toys at the bottom. This time was no different. I opened the closet door with irritation, and Apon looking at an empty space once again. I closeted a little bit harder than I wanted, and went back to our bedroom. "It's all clear, buddy," I said softly, stepping back into our bare bedroom. Richard was still curled up in Sarah's lap, his face blotchy with tears. She said it's almost time for me to meet her other children," he choked out between sobs. "She said you don't love me, only she loves me, and that she's my real mother." His eyes flicked up to Sarah's face before he buried himself against her chest, clinging to her like a lifeline. "But I don't want her to be my mommy. You're my mommy." "It's okay, sweetheart. It's okay," Sarah cooed, rocking him gently. "You're not going anywhere with her. You can sleep with us tonight." I tried to catch her eyes, sending her a desperate look that screamed absolutely not. But she wouldn't meet my gaze, and it was clear I had no sway in this. Sarah curled up with Richard, whispering comfort into his hair as his little body shook with exhaustion. I grabbed my pillow and trudged to the living room, resigning myself to another night on the couch. A glance at the clock on the way out, 3:45 a.m. If I was lucky, maybe I'd steal a few hours of rest before the alarm yanked me up for work at 7. Richard's night terrors were getting worse. What had started as once or twice a week had snowballed into nearly every night. The constant interruptions, the same routine over and over, I was starting to feel the edges of my sanity fray. We tried everything nightlights, leaving the door cracked, sitting with him until he fell asleep. For a while, we thought it might help, but every night the same thing happened. The screams, the tears, the panicked rush to his room, over and over. What used to be once or twice a week had turned into a ritual, a relentless routine that left us staggering through the days like zombies. When morning finally came, I was pulled from a shallow, twisted sleep by the shrill whistle of the kettle. My neck throbbed from the awkward angle of the couch cushions as I pushed myself upright. Richard sat at the table, still in his pajamas, spooning soggy cereal into his mouth. Sarah hovered beside him with her mug clutched tight, her face pale, eyes rimmed in red. She looked like she hadn't slept either. "Morning," I muttered, grabbing a mug from the cupboard. Sarah only hummed in response, staring at Richard like she was watching him for signs of something she couldn't quite name. "How'd you sleep, buddy?" I asked, forcing a note of cheer into my voice as I reached over to ruffle his hair. "Fine," he mumbled, without looking up from his cereal. His voice was flat, distant, too old for an 8-year-old. I frowned. "No bad dreams?" "I've told you, it's not a dream," Richard said quietly, but there was a tremor in his voice. "She's real." "Richard, please, it's not. You don't listen," he suddenly shouted, the words bursting out of him like a dam breaking. He shoved his chair back, startling Sarah so badly she almost spilled her coffee. "She's real! She's real! She's real!" Okay, I said, hands out, trying to calm him. Richard's small chest heaved. His eyes welled with tears before he collapsed back onto the table, his forehead pressing into his arms as sobs overtook him. "I should get ready for work," I muttered, the weight of exhaustion settling over me like a heavy coat. I stormed out of the room, shoulders tense, each step dragging as though the floor itself were holding me back. I shambled into work, feeling hollow, the morning's tension still clinging to me like wet clothes. Every step felt heavier than the last, and the hum of fluorescent lights overhead grated on my nerves. My coworkers greeted me with cheerful hellos, but their voices sounded distant, almost muffled, as if I were underwater. Meetings blurred together. I nodded at things I didn't absorb, smiled at jokes I didn't hear. My hands shook slightly as I sipped coffee after coffee, trying to fuel my brain enough to function. By lunchtime, my stomach had tied itself in knots, twisting with anxiety rather than hunger. I was more caffeine then, man. The day felt endless, each task a mountain, each conversation a strain. I smiled when someone complimented a project, but it felt hollow, forced. Every text or ping made me flinch, half expecting it to be a message from home. A new terror, a new scream, a new worry. By the time the workday ended, I was completely drained, my mind frayed at the edges. I packed up slowly, almost reluctantly, thinking of the evening ahead. Another night, another battle against shadows only I could see. The thought made my chest tighten, but I knew I'd march back home anyway, because that's where my son was, and he needed me. That's when I had an idea. On the way home, I stopped at a local electronics store and picked up a nanny cam. It was a small, unassuming square with a tiny lens in the center, but I knew it could be the key to finally understanding what was happening. After a quiet, tense dinner, I explained the idea to Sarah. She listened carefully, her tired eyes locked on mine, and after a moment she nodded. "It's a good idea," she said softly. "Anything to help Richard and us." I passed Richard in the living room. He was lying on his belly, engrossed in a pair of dinosaurs, making loud roars and snarls as he smashed them together. Nearby, a drawing caught my eye. It depicted the three of us, me on the far left, Sarah in the middle, and Richard to the right. But at the very edge of the page, there was another figure. It was taller than any of us, long black hair falling over its head, arms unnaturally long, and a crooked smile crudely drawn across its face. I clung to the hope that the camera would finally reveal the truth, that it was all in my son's head. I set up the nanny cam on Richard's dresser, a perfect vantage point capturing both his bed and the closet in frame. Tomorrow morning, I planned to show him that nothing was in his room, that everything was safe, that we could all sleep easy. After downloading the app and double-checking that the camera was recording, I got Richard ready for bed. His small hands clutched his favorite dinosaur as I helped him into a pair of blue pajamas and tucked him in. "See that?" I asked, pointing to the camera as I crouched by his bed. "It's a camera. It'll keep you safe." "Will she see it?" His voice trembled, the terror behind the words unmistakable. "I don't think so, buddy," I said gently. "She probably won't do anything. I'll be watching over you tonight. I'll keep you safe." "Okay," he whimpered, convinced, or at least trying to be. "I love you, buddy," I said, leaning over to kiss his forehead. "I love you too, Dad," he murmured, eyes already heavy with sleep. I stood slowly, careful not to make a sound, and left the room, leaving his door cracked open. I awoke in the morning, surprisingly rested. Glancing at the clock, I realized it was already 8 a.m. Sarah lay next to me, her soft snores filling the quiet room. I carefully swung my legs over the side of the bed and crept toward Richard's room. I gently knocked on the slightly ajar door before peeking inside. He lay on his back, blankets pulled up to his chest, staring at me with a solemn, almost black expression. "Morning, buddy. Sleep okay?" I asked softly. He simply nodded. "That's good. Are you hungry? I can whip up some pancakes if you want." Richard nodded again. He was no doubt heavy with lingering sleep. "All right, bud. I'll let you snooze a bit longer. I'll holler when pancakes are ready." I shut the door quietly and made my way to the kitchen. The rest of the morning passed without incident. Richard emerged from his room about an hour after I had checked on him, absolutely famished. He devoured 6 pancakes with barely a pause, but he remained quiet, speaking little. After breakfast, he quietly went off to play with his toys. After showering and getting dressed, I decided to show Richard the footage from the nanny cam. Pulling out my phone, I opened the app and began reviewing last night's recording. I watched myself lean over his bed, planting a gentle kiss on his forehead, whispering that I loved him, and then quietly leaving the room. The camera's night vision kicked in, bathing the room in an eerie, pale green light. I fast-forwarded the footage a bit, stopping just after midnight. The closet door creaked open, a thin, almost skeletal hand pushing it aside. On the screen, I saw my boy jolt upright in bed, his eyes snapping to the darkness. Before he could even scream, something surged out of the closet, a tall, impossibly pale figure, its long black hair spilling down over its chest like a waterfall. It wore a torn, dirty, knee-high white gown. The arms were grotesquely long, outstretched as it rushed towards the bed. In one smooth motion, It clamped a hand over Richard's mouth, smothering any sound, and with the other arm scooped him up as though he weighed nothing. It held him to its chest, rocking him slowly, almost tenderly, like a mother soothing a frightened child. My poor boy's small fists pounded against its chest, his legs kicked wildly, but the thing didn't flinch. It simply tightened its grip and continued its eerie rocking, staring down at him with hollow, unblinking eyes. Then it carried him off into the closet. I watched in horror, my stomach twisting with dread, and fast-forwarded the footage. About 30 minutes later, the thing returned, moving silently from the closet. This time, it carried something a doll, pale and lifeless, cradled in its long, spindly arms. It set the doll carefully on Richard's bed, then glided toward the dresser. From a drawer, it pulled out a pair of pajamas and, with deliberate care, dressed the doll in my son's clothes. A soft, almost affectionate tap on the doll's head followed, then the figure retreated into the shadows of the closet, closing the door with a faint click. I held my breath, watching the doll. Slowly, impossibly, it began to grow. Its limbs stretched, its torso lengthened, until it matched the exact height and shape of Richard. Even his hair was the same. The doll, no, the thing was now indistinguishable from my son, and a cold, creeping terror wrapped around me like ice. That thing in my house is not my son. I don't even know why I'm writing this. Maybe because if I don't, no one will ever know what happened here. Maybe someone will at least understand what happened to my boy. Richard is gone. She took him. I haven't told Sarah. She thinks Richard's been quiet today, that he's just tired. I can't tell her. She wouldn't believe me. Or maybe she would, and then she'd go crazy like I am. I don't know what to do. I can't go to the police and tell them a monster took my child. They'd lock me up. Please, please, if anyone ever finds this, help us. My son is out there somewhere. She took him somewhere. I don't know if he's alive or dead. I don't know if she's keeping him. I'm going to try tonight. I'm going into the closet. If I don't come back, if Sarah finds this, tell her I tried. Tell Richard I'm sorry. Thank you for watching Nightmare Proof. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to keep the nightmares alive. Have a story of your own? Send it in, and you may hear it here next time. Until then, sleep well if you can.